Hi, everybody. So, in honor of Valentine's Day, which was on the 14th, I'm going to talk about today my top 20 rom-com movies. This list is a mixture of teen and adult rom-coms. It's a good mixture of rom-coms I watched when I was in high school and adult rom-coms. The first one I wanted to talk about is Bring It On, which Matt and I will be reviewing in our video that will be out next weekend when we do our January and February entertainment wrap-up. Bring It On came on in 2000 and is a cheerleading movie that stars Kirsten Dunst, Elijah Dushku from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Gabrielle Union, who was in Friends for one episode as one of Ross's neighbors. So for those of you who do not know, although you probably know by now through hearing the backstory of the Janine book, when I was in high school, I was the manager of the cheerleading team, and when I tried out for the cheerleading team, even though I ended up being the manager, I still went to the tryout and actually try out for the team because my best friend at the time, Samantha, she taught me all the cheers so I could learn them, and one of the cheers that we kind of learned was one of the cheers from Bring It On. I don't remember which one. One thing that hasn't aged particularly well about Bring It On is all the gay stereotypes and also the sexual harassment, because Jan, the guy cheerleader, spends his whole routine looking up the skirt of the cheerleader who is in front of him in line, Courtney. The second movie is 13 Going on 30 with Jennifer Garner. This movie came out when I was a senior in high school in 2004, and it stars Jennifer Garner. It's about a 13-year-old girl who wishes that she was 30, flirty, and thriving on her 13th birthday because she has kind of a crummy birthday party where she gets locked in the closet. This is a time travel type theme musical. Think about the book The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, but instead of having a magical apartment, a girl gets locked in her closet on her 13th birthday and gets transferred to the early 2000s when she's 30 years old. This movie is okay. I believe last year when we watched it, we gave it 6.5 to 7 out of 10 stars on IMDb. In some cases, I may spoil bits and pieces of these movies, and I'm sorry in advance. The next movie that I'm going to talk about is 10 Things I Hate About You. We are actually watching this movie tomorrow afternoon because we're getting a snowstorm, and we're having a movie marathon of 10 Things I Hate About You and Confessions of a Shopaholic. So this movie came out in 1999 and stars Julia Stiles from Save the Last Dance, Larissa Oleynik from The Secret World of Alex Mack, Joseph Gordon-Levitt from Third Rock from the Sun, and Heath Ledger from Batman. So this is a retelling of the Shakespeare play, The Taming of the Shrew, and it focuses on two sisters who are totally different in personality. Larissa Oleynik's character, Bianca, is like the really popular cheerleader type girl, and first of all, Bianca and Kat have a really strict father, and the rule of their house is that Bianca can't go anywhere unless Kat goes too. But Kat is really antisocial and not very popular, and she doesn't have a lot of friends. She is an artist, and she's trying to go to art school at Stanford, which I think is in California. Yeah, that college is in California. She lives in Washington State. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt is new to the school, and he's friends with a kid in his class who's trying to hook him up with Bianca. And then Heath Ledger's character is the rebel character. His name is Patrick Verona. And the person who is friends with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character basically gets Patrick to makes a bet with Patrick to ask him to date Kat, and they end up actually being a really good match for each other. I think they are evenly matched. And my favorite scene in 10 Things I Hate About You is the scene where he sings I Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by the Four Seasons, and gets the marching band to woo her, to ask her out. So here's a quick question. If you guys have seen the episode of Cougar Town where Matthew Perry guest stars as the rich businessman Sam and tries to woo Courtney Cox's part character Jules, at the end of the flash mob scene, a marching band comes out, and Matthew Perry's character Sam is in a red band leader uniform. If you have seen 10 Things I Hate About You and seen an episode of Cougar Town, I wanted to know if you thought Matthew Perry got inspiration from that scene in 10 Things I Hate About You when he came up with the idea to film the flash mob scene in Cougar Town. That would be really cute if the reason why I have that theory is because I knew he was a fan of Batman, and Heath Ledger played Joker in the Batman trilogy by Christopher Nolan. The next movie I wanted to talk about is High School Musical. To be fair, I was in college when High School Musical came out, and I didn't start watching it until after I graduated, so I was late to the game. But High School Musical focuses on Troy, who is a basketball player, and Gabriella, who is kind of a nerd, and she's new to the school. They actually meet on Christmas vacation when they sing together in a talent show at the ski lodge that they're at with their families, and then Gabriella is the new kid at school the next semester. So it's kind of like Grease in a way, with the way the romance is set up, because they meet when they're on vacation and then they meet at school a couple of weeks later. So they audition for the musical at their high school, and they beat out the popular girls, the popular musical theater kids who are named Sharpay and Ryan Evans, who are brother and sister. Troy Bolton was played by Zac Efron. Gabriella Montez was played by Vanessa Hudgens. And Sharpay Evans was played by Ashley Tisdale. And I have seen the musical of High School Musical before because the Amato Center did it before we moved up here. My friend F. Morphia was Gabriella. I can't remember who played Troy in that musical, but my favorite songs in High School Musical are Breaking Free, We're All in This Together, and Bop to the Top. The next rom-com that I wanted to talk about is A Walk to Remember. I have a connection to this movie because we sang the song from it in my high school chorus when I was a sophomore for our Pops concert, and I remember loving this song. And then later that year, in 2002, the movie with Mandy Moore and Shane West came out. And the movie is based on the novel by Nicholas Sparks. All of Nicholas Sparks' books are set in North Carolina. Other movies that I have seen based on his books, actually, I think the only other movie that I've seen based on one of his books is The Last Song. But the other two movies that I want to see based on his books are Night at Rodanthe and Dear John, because Dear John has Amanda Seyfried in it. And Amanda Seyfried is one of my current favorite actresses. So in A Walk to Remember, we meet Landon, who is kind of a rebellious kid who gets in trouble a lot. And he is played by Shane West. And then we have Jamie, who is the preacher's daughter, who is played by Mandy Moore, who sings the popular song in this movie called Only Hope. And they form an unlikely friendship and end up falling in love. But the twist in this is that the reason why she doesn't want to get too close to Landon is because she has leukemia and she's going to eventually pass away. So if you have never seen this movie before, but I cannot understand why you would not have, because it has been out since 2002, so it's been out for over 20 years by now. If you have never seen it, you should definitely see it. It's very good, and Shane West and Mandy Moore have amazing chemistry. The next favorite rom-com of my teenage years was The Princess Diaries with Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway is quite busy this year because she is coming out with the third Princess Diaries movie that's supposed to be coming out in August. The second movie, To Devil Wears Prada, is coming out on April 18th. And the movie Verity, that's based on Colleen Hoover's book. So I think Verity actually might have gotten the title of the movie changed, because I've seen the movie posters on Facebook. And it's weird because I wonder if the reason why they decided to change the movie name was because It Ends With Us got such horrible backlash from it because of all the sexual assault claims that the actress from It Ends With Us put against the actor. Justin Baldoni was the actor. Now I can't remember the actress's name. It might have been Ashley Tisdale. I actually don't remember who that lead actress was. I will have to look it up later on. But I have a feeling that's the reason why they changed the title of the Verity movie, because of all the backlash that It Ends With Us got. Verity, the original title of the movie was Verity, based on a book by Colleen Hoover. But I'm assuming that this movie's name got changed because of all the issues that it ends with, all the backlash that It Ends With Us got. So Verity stars Anne Hathaway from The Princess Diaries, Josh Hartnett from Pearl Harbor. So if you were fans of Pearl Harbor, you should definitely go check out this movie. And Dakota Johnson, who is a more recent romantic comedy movie actress. So The Princess Diaries is about a modern-day teenager named Mia Thermopolis who finds out one day that she comes from royalty and is heir to the throne in a fictional place called Genovia. Like a fictional country. It's not actually a real country. her grandmother, Queen Clarice, is played by Julie Andrews from Mary Poppins and the Sound of Music. So when this movie first came out, I was so excited because I was a huge fan of The Sound of Music since I was 10 years old. So I really love Mia's character evolution in the first movie. And I love the dynamics that she has with the two love interests in these movies too. I can't remember the lead guy's name in the first movie, but in the second movie, the prince that she's engaged to is Nicholas, and their chemistry is really adorable. The next movie that I wanted to talk about is Notting Hill. Matt and I watched Notting Hill last year as part of our TBR for Manhattan to Stars Hollow. So for our From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, me, Kathleen, and Matt watch movies or TV shows that have the Friends actors in them. And Julia Roberts was in 3 different rom-coms during 1990s. Notting Hill, which I'm going to talk about right now. Pretty Woman, which I'm going to talk to... Oh, wait, maybe there was 4. Pretty Woman, which I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Runaway Bride, and then My Best Friend's Wedding. So she was, like, all over the place in the 1990s. And then in the early 2000s, she came out with this biopic movie called Erin Brockovich, which I didn't really care for. I thought that movie was boring. But for those of you who want to know a fun fact, my friend from high school, is second cousins with Julia Roberts. So we used to tease him a lot and ask him if he would get us free movie passes. Of course, like this would never happen, because like how would that have happened? Although I guess if he really wanted to get them, he could have talked through somehow gotten them through the relative he was the second cousin of. But Notting Hill is set in England, and it stars Hugh Grant from Love Actually and Bridget Jones's Diary as a bookstore owner. Julia Roberts plays an actress from America named Anna who comes into his bookstore, and they fall in love with each other. I love their romance. It's so cute. But, like, his family is sort of mean to him, and that's what kind of ruined us rating this movie high. We gave it, like, 6.5 out of 10. Number 8 is Mean Girls. Mean Girls is the first Lindsay Lohan movie that is on this list. I have also seen the musical of Mean Girls at my cousin Juliana's school a couple of years ago. She's in college right now, so she was in Mean Girls in her junior year of high school in the ensemble. My favorite song from the musical is probably Revenge Party. And this character, so this focuses on a girl named Katie Heron who transfers to a public high school in California from South Africa. And she becomes friends when she gets to this school with these characters named Janice, Ian, and Damien. I don't remember Damien's last name. But they warn her to stay away from this popular girl group called the Plastics, which is led by this really nasty character named Regina George. So Regina George is played by Rachel McAdams, who is also in The Notebook, another 2000s rom-com movie that was based on a book by Nicholas Sparks. So you can tell that this actress, Rachel McAdams, had range because she played in 2 movies the same year that were romances with totally different themes. Mean Girls was a teen movie because it's set in a high school and it's about like high school cliques. It is actually based on a parenting book called Queen Bees and Wannabes, which is about how to teach your kids to survive middle school and high school and like deal with cliques. I read that book actually, and I can't really connect to it because it's not like I'm going to be able to pass that information along to kids because we're not going to have kids. And in the Notebook, she plays Allie, who is the love interest of Noah, who is played by Ryan Gosling from La La Land. And I loved their chemistry, but I really hate the scene in that movie when he asks her out, because basically he kind of forces her to go out with him because by like yelling at her and saying he's gonna like jump off the Ferris wheel and kill himself if he doesn't, if she doesn't say yes to him. So their relationship doesn't start off the greatest, but their love story is still very beautiful and very sad at the end. Nicholas Sparks is the master of heart-wrenching romance books. And A Walk to Remember and A Notebook are two books that make me cry, and the movies make me cry too. So if you see either of those movies, be sure you have tissues. With Mean Girls, it's really interesting because the character that I felt really sad for in that movie was actually Gretchen Wieners, who is played by Lacey Chabert, because she was Regina's best friend, but Regina kind of like forgets about her because she turns out she really wants the quest for popularity, and I felt sad for her. Amanda Seyfried is also in this movie. She was in Dear John, like I mentioned earlier. Not only was she in if you are familiar with Amanda Seyfried, you will know that she plays Sophie in the Mamma Mia movies, and she was also recently in the Frida McFadden adaptation of The Housemaid as Nina Winchester, and I hope she's nominated for an Oscar because she would totally deserve to win. So I saw a post on Instagram recently about characters in movies and TV shows that could be neurodivergent, and Janice Ian from Mean Girls pops up in this list as a character who could be neurodivergent. So for those of you who don't know, I have a neurodivergent disability similar to autism, but not autism. And I was diagnosed with this learning disability when I was 14. So at the time that Mean Girls was released, the reason why I connected to Janice's character was because she has a strong sense of social justice. And as you know, I am a disability rights advocate, and I go around to schools talking about this book with my mom about the disability rights law that was passed in the 1970s to allow students with disabilities to go to mainstream schools. The next movie that I want to talk about is Fools Rush In. This movie came out in 1997, and I didn't see it until 2023 after I read Matthew Perry's memoir. In his book, Matthew Perry says how this was his best movie that he ever made, and I agree with him 100%. It is definitely his best movie. To me, his worst movies were probably The Whole 10 Yards, Birds of America, and A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. So in this movie, he stars alongside Salma Hayek, and I love their on-screen chemistry. His dad also appears in this movie as his on-screen father, which I thought was also a really fun dynamic. And as we have mentioned before in previous videos, the thing that hasn't aged particularly well about this movie is how is the racism toward Mexicans, because Salma Hayek is a Mexican actress, so obviously she comes from a huge Mexican family, and like Matthew Perry's dad, his character says something really mean to the dad of Selma Hayek's dad, and they don't really get along. They butt heads. I think they were talking about politics or something on the boat that they were sailing on or something. So obviously this movie could not be remade because Matthew Perry is dead, but if there were a sequel to be made to this movie, I think it would be focused more on their daughter, or maybe even their granddaughter, because as you all know, at the end of the movie, Isabel and Alex have a baby girl, and we never know what her name is. They never really say what her name is. So I want to know what you guys, if you have seen this movie too, what do you think the baby's name was? So my theory is that if they were to make a modern day version of this movie, it would focus on either the granddaughter, the daughter or the granddaughter. Because, I mean, the daughter would probably be like in her 20s or 30s. So I figured it would be like a story about the granddaughter learning about the Mexican heritage. And then, because, like, think of the Lizzie McGuire episode for a minute, Dawn of the Day of the Dead. It's a Halloween episode, but Lizzie's friend Miranda wants to incorporate her country's holiday, the Day of the Dead, which is the holiday that's mentioned in the Disney movie Coco, for those of you not familiar with Coco. And it's basically a Mexican holiday that takes place after Halloween, where all the Mexican people celebrate the deaths of their lost loved ones. And that would be a good way to also tie in, like, Matthew Perry's death to a present day movie. Just a thought for producers in case they ever see this. The next movie is Bridget Jones's Diary. This is a modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice that stars Renee Zellweger, Hugh Grant, and Colin Firth. Colin Firth was also... Wait, what else was he in? I don't remember. But Hugh Grant was also in Notting Hill, as I just mentioned, and he was also in Love Actually, in the storyline with the British Prime Minister. The fact-shaming in that section of that movie has not aged well. So, as I was just saying, Bridget Jones's Diary is a holiday movie that focuses on this English office worker named Bridget Jones, who, like, keeps a diary about improving herself and quitting smoking and losing weight. And for those of you familiar with Pride and Prejudice, basically Hugh Grant is the Darcy character, and then Colin Firth is Mr. Bingley. And I really loved the dynamic between all three romantic leads in this movie. Kathleen and I watched it last year for the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR after we watched the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley. And we gave both of those movies 9 out of 10 stars on IMDb. The next movie that I wanted to talk about is Along Came Polly. As I said at the beginning of this list, when I talked about the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR, the goal of this TBR is to not only watch movies with Matthew Perry in them in order to honor his memory, but also to analyze all of the films with the other actors from Friends in them. Like this one, for example. This movie came out in 2004. when Friends was ending. It's set in New York City. It focuses on Ruben Pfefferman, who is played by Ben Stiller, and him and his wife go on their honeymoon to Hawaii, and the wife cheats on him with their scuba diving instructor, who is played by Hank Azaria from The Simpsons and Friends. So David the Scientist Guy basically turns into a scuba instructor who a girl cheats on her husband with. So after his disastrous honeymoon, Ruben goes back to New York and connects with an old friend from junior high school named Polly Prince, who is played by Jennifer Aniston. And I really loved their on-screen chemistry. Just like Adam Sandler, I think Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston really have great on-screen chemistry. And not to spoil the ending of this, but I think when Ruben breaks up with Lisa at the end of the movie, she gets what she deserves for cheating on him with the scuba instructor. And I was so happy that he did that and ended up deciding to continue things with Polly. And I would have loved to see a sequel to this movie to see what happened with them next. The next movie that I want to talk about is Just Go With It. This is another movie that stars Jennifer Aniston. In this movie, she plays opposite Adam Sandler, and they play a couple who is about to divorce, but they go on vacation with their kids one last time before they divorce, and the antics they get up to is funny. There's this really funny scene where they're dancing at Hawaiian luau, and like they're kind of arguing throughout the dance, and it was hysterical. We gave this movie 9 out of 10 stars, and the same thing with Along Came Polly. The next movie I wanted to talk about is A Cinderella Story. A Cinderella Story stars Hilary Duff from Lizzie McGuire and Chad Michael Murray from One Tree Hill and Gilmore Girls. They play people that go to the same high school. Sam is kind of nerdy, and her best friend Carter is played by Dan Bird from Cougar Town, the one who plays Courtney Cox's son, Travis. And I love them together as a pair of best friends. They were great. So, in A Cinderella Story, it's like a modern retelling of Cinderella, only set in California. It's the same type of thing. Cinderella's dad dies. But like he dies in a hurricane instead of dying by unknown circumstances. There's a dark fan theory that actually says that Lady Tremaine killed Cinderella's dad. So in this version of Cinderella, Sam, who's Hilary Duff's character, works in her dad's old diner that is now owned by her evil stepmother, who is played by Jennifer Coolidge from American Pie, Friends, and Joey. And she's really mean. She doesn't really let Sam have much of a life outside of working at the diner. So she meets somebody in an online chat room that goes by the nickname Nomad. And this turns out to be the popular jock Austin Ames, who is played by Chad Michael Murray. And I really love the scene when they're at the dance when she has the mask on and she's afraid to take the mask off because she doesn't really want to reveal who she is. But obviously, she ends up revealing herself to him. And I really love the scene when she tells him off at the football game in the rain. And I saw something last summer on Chad Michael Murray's Instagram that said there was going to be a sequel to Cinderella Story coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm excited for that movie to come out because I'm really excited to see what happens next for Sam and Austin. The next movie I wanted to talk about is The Wedding Singer. This came out in 1998. It is one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. In this movie, Adam Sandler plays a wedding singer named Robbie Hart who breaks up with his girlfriend Linda at the beginning of the movie. He falls in love with a waitress named Julia Gulia, who is played by Drew Barrymore. And just like his chemistry with Jennifer Aniston and Just Go With It, I think he had amazing chemistry with Drew Barrymore in this movie. And when he sings I Want to Grow Old With You on the airplane to her, I love that scene. It makes me cry all the time. And The Wedding Singer also has a musical that came out in the early to mid 2000s, I think. And the Amato Center did it in 2016. And my friend Matt Katianis played Robbie Hart, and he was fabulous in that role. The next movie that I wanted to talk about is Pretty Woman. Matt and I are going to be reviewing this movie in our entertainment wrap-up next weekend, so I don't want to talk too much about it here. This is another movie that we watched that stars Julia Roberts. Richard Gere is in this movie with her, and also in Runaway Bride. So now I want to watch Runaway Bride to kind of compare their characters. So stay tuned next weekend for our reviews of Pretty Woman and Bring It On, because we're going to go into details about the chemistry between the actors in both of these movies, specifically in Bring It On. Cliff and Torrance. Cliff is Missy's brother, who's played by Missy is played by Elisha Dushku from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The next movie I wanted to talk about is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. This came out in 2002. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It focuses on a shy, introverted girl named Nia, and she is Greek, and she falls in love with somebody from her office who is not Greek, and I just love the big family dynamic because it reminds me of my big Italian family. And I'm going to be watching this movie again really soon with Kathleen. I believe we're watching it at the end of May, and I haven't watched it for a while. Something interesting I realized is that there was a TV show that came out that was a spin-off of My Big Fat Greek Wedding called My Big Fat Greek Life. Did any of you guys ever watch that TV show? Because I do not remember it. It didn't last very long from what I understand. I watch these retrospective videos of shows from the 2000s that were canceled. If I can find a video, I will link that in the description. So, yes. I can't wait to watch that movie again. Number 17 is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. This is a teen rom-com that focuses on the found family friendship of 4 teenage characters played by Blake Lively from Gossip Girl, America Ferrera from Ugly Betty and the Barbie movie, Alexis Bledel from Gilmore Girls, and Amber Tamblyn. These 4 girls named Tibby, Bridget, Carmen, and Lena all magically somehow fit into this pair of jeans, and it keeps them in touch throughout the whole summer where they're away doing various things. Tibby stays home to film a documentary, and she meets this little girl who has cancer. I don't remember what her name is, but their dynamic is really cute. And Bridget is at soccer camp in Colombia or some foreign country, and she falls in love with her soccer coach. Now, I have a video coming out on March 28th, which is in about a month, about student-teacher relationships, and I neglected to mention Bridget's relationship with her soccer coach in that video, so I'm going to talk about here. Bridget is 17. Her soccer coach is supposed to be in his mid to late 20s. So it's like age reversal of young Ethan and Monica on Friends. And I mean, I give the coach character credit in the movie for like saying that this is wrong. I wish that Ross had accepted that about his relationship with Elizabeth on Friends, because then that whole uncomfortable series of 3 episodes would have not happened. Although if they didn't happen, Bruce Willis would have never guest starred. And he saved that whole set of 3 episodes from being boring. Let's admit that right now. Number 18 is Romeo and Juliet. So Romeo and Juliet has always been my favorite Shakespeare play, and West Side Story, by connection, is my favorite musical, because at the time, that was one of the key modern iterations of Romeo and Juliet. The 1996 version of the film was by Baz Luhrmann, and it starred Leonardo DiCaprio of Titanic and The Great Gatsby and Wolf of Wall Street and Gangs of New York. He did a lot of movies in the 90s and early 2000s, although The Great Gatsby came out in 2013. I have been a fan of him for a long time, ever since Titanic. So, no, actually, Romeo and Juliet came out first, and Titanic came out the next year. But I didn't see Titanic. I saw Titanic when it first came out. I didn't see Romeo and Juliet until 2 years later, when I took theater seminar in my senior year in high school. But yeah, the scenery in 1996 Romeo and Juliet, beautiful. I also love the scene when they're at the dance, because, I mean, the choreography is just so great. So I obviously gave that movie 8 out of 10 stars. So this modern interpretation of Romeo and Juliet is set in California, and there's this really emotional scene when Romeo is like fighting in a battle in the desert with his cousin, and the Capulets and the Montagues are basically fighting in the middle of the desert, and Leonardo DiCaprio like gets down on his knees and like screams out in pain because he's like really upset about how things are going. I just loved how that scene was shot. And one thing I also liked about the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants was the scenes when Lena was in Greece visiting her family, because there was really great cinematography of the Greek islands and a small town that Lena's family is in that reminds me of the town in Italy where my family is from. Number 19 is She's the Man. This is a modern retelling of Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare, which focuses on Viola, who has to pretend she's her twin brother Sebastian in order to play for the soccer team, because the soccer team at her own school gets disbanded. So this movie is so funny. So Amanda Bynes from All That plays Viola, and when she is pretending to be her brother and flirting with Channing Tatum, who plays her romantic interest in this movie, it's so funny. Like, they have this weird discussion about cheese for 10 minutes. It's hysterical. If you have never seen this movie, you should definitely check it out. It's worth the watch. Number 20 is Freaky Friday. This is another movie from the early 2000s with Lindsay Lohan in it. In this movie and last summer's sequel, Freakier Friday, the first movie focuses on Tess and Anna, and they are a mother and daughter pair who don't get along, and they switch bodies. And then throughout this whole time, when their bodies are switched, they learn about themselves and each other, and the same thing happens in the sequel. In this movie that came out last summer on August 8th, 2025, Anna and her daughter switched places with each other, and this scene... Yeah. So the scene that's funny in this movie is when Anna's daughter, as her mother, is flirting with Chad Michael Murray's character in a record store. It's hysterical. Which character who plays a love interest in these movies do I like the best? Out of the two movies that I mentioned that have Chad Michael Murray in them, probably Jake, because he's a musician. I mean, I liked Austin too, because I had my share of crushes on my guy friends in high school who play sports, but I like Jake. I just think Jake is a character I could relate to more because he's a musician. So I would recommend both Freaky Friday movies, but the musical version is not good at all. We saw the musical version at Prescott Park in Portsmouth last year. Me and Sonia and Laura and Patty and Matt, we all saw the musical of Freaky Friday at Prescott Park. The only one of our favorite songs is called Women and Sandwiches. That is sung by the love interest, Adam, to Anna's little brother Fletcher. And that song made me think of Joey from Friends, because it's about women and sandwiches, two of his favorite things, because he's like a womanizer and all he does is think about food. So which of these rom-coms do you like? Do you have any favorite rom-coms that I forgot to mention? Please stay tuned next week for the video Matt and I are doing, where we are going to be reviewing Bring It On and 10 Things I Hate About You. That will be out next Sunday, sometime in the late afternoon. We don't know what time yet, so stay tuned. Thank you. Have a great week.